The DJI Pocket 4P is the perfect travel camera on paper. Dual lenses, real log profiles, D-Log 2, hundreds of gigabytes for internal storage, and it also fits in your pocket. Fully stabilized. What's there to complain about? Well, here's something that people don't tell you about. I've been shooting with the DJI 4P for about 2 months now, and there are some caveats that most people don't actually talk about on YouTube. And here's my honest take. Image quality is superb, and the user experience is sometimes against you. And two of these problems may actually be a deal breaker. Let's get into it. So what's new? Dual lenses. You now get a 20mm standard lens, so you can shoot wide landscapes. A new telephoto lens, so that's a great welcomed addition. 60mm to 120mm, it will be lossless for 4K. If you were to zoom in all the way to 240mm, that will be at 2x loss of the image quality. It's still usable, I would say. But that being said, being able to shoot in, standard lens and also the telephoto lens gives you a lot more flexibility when it comes to landscape photos or videos, you name it. Secondly, the real big change in this camera is the D-Log 2. So D-Log 2 is able to bring you 17 stops of dynamic range, and that is absolutely massive. If you were to compare it to a cinematic camera, let's say an Airy, it's basically close to that range already. Even if you were to compare it against some of the mirrorless cameras, you would be looking at around 14 stops of dynamic range. For some of them are at 13 stops depending on what you're using. So 17 stops is a big deal. You're basically able to get real cinematic footage out of this camera without having to bring a huge rig of gimbal, lenses, storage devices, stabilizers, all is within this small package itself. The third welcomed addition is the 107 gigabytes of internal storage. And why do I say that? It's because in this day and age, storage is becoming a little bit too expensive, to be honest. Even for micro SD cards, if I were to look at a 512 gigabytes card, it would be costing about $250, which is, I used to buy 512 gigabytes of SD cards for about $60, and it went up by about 3 or 4 times its original price, at least from a year ago. To put that into perspective, what can you actually shoot with 107 gigabytes of storage? Depending on the bit rate you're using, if you're using low, you get about 3-4 hours of footage. If you were to shoot at 4K 60, you divide that by half, so about an hour and a half. If you were to shoot on high bit rate, on 4K 30, you get about an hour of footage or so. Where it really comes in handy, to be honest, is where you would be forgetting about your SD cards at home. For some people who are on the go, and if they're switching SD cards, continuously, then I would definitely think this is a welcome addition for those people. I myself, I really love the image quality coming out of DJI devices. By the way, this video is entirely shot on DJI Pocket 4P. And also the microphone I'm using right now is the DJI Mic 3. So this is as best as you can get for the DJI Pocket 4P in terms of image quality and also on the audio itself. This entire video is going to be shot on D-Log 2 and also high bitrate on the DJI Pocket 4P. Here's my opinion. Where this camera earns its keep is in the moments bigger setups can't really cover. Because it's so light, you can mount it anywhere, essentially. You basically have a cinema rig in your hands that is super light, and the image quality is on par with a lot of cinema cameras out there. The telephoto lens is a real surprise here. So background separation and depth of the pocket camera, we just haven't been able to do it before. So that is a genuine step up. And if you were to shoot solo, that Mimo app changes the workflow. Set the camera on the tripod, walk into the frame, track yourself, start recording. All is done on the Mimo app. Now, if you don't want to use the Mimo app, you can always use the frame tab, which I don't have for review. The frame tab is a little bit limited, which I'll talk about later. If you were to shoot solo, the Mimo app will do justice for you. Here's my frustrations, and it's totally my opinion. If you don't agree with it, feel free to leave a comment down below, and I'm gonna try to test it with your way to see if it actually makes a difference for me. Here it goes. First off, D-Log 2 is a double-edged sword, and it's actually a huge one that frustrates me the most. While you're able to get, amazing image quality out of it, that workflow from D-Log 2 switching into D-Log 1 if you were to switch lenses is absolutely annoying. There's no reason for DJI not to fix this. Essentially, when you're switching from, let's say if you're starting off with D-Log 2 on the standard lens, because it forces you to use the standard lens, if you want to shoot telephoto, the first thing you have to do is to use the menu system, switch it back to D-Log 1, and then go back out to switch it to another lens. If you were to switch to another lens while shooting on standard lens on D-Log 2, it will not let you switch to the telephoto lens. So that basically forces me to use D-Log 1 at all times if I'm on the go, right? D-Log 1 still looks amazing, to be honest, but the whole selling point of the DJI Pocket 4P is D-Log 2. So if I'm not able to use it in all scenarios while on the go, I feel like that's a deal breaker. And why don't I just use D-Log 1 to be more flexible, changing between lenses? There should be a way for DJI to fix with the firmware, at least an option where if I were to switch to a telephoto lens, it automatically disables and switches to D-Log 1. It shouldn't be a limitation by any means. There should be a way to automatically change to D-Log 1 without having me fiddling with the menu settings while switching lenses. And chances are, you're going to miss the moment. And that being said, of course, the D-Log 2 is not enabled on the telephoto lens, so that's why DJI is forcing you to use standard lens when you're using D-Log 2. In fast-paced shooting, that's not a minor inconvenience, that's a missed shot. For anyone shooting events, travel, or anything unscripted, this is the feature you need to know about before you buy this camera. Ergonomics is actually one of the biggest drawback of this camera, is that the design of the DJI 4P is completely flat. That base is not able to stand by itself unless you carefully place it onto a flat surface. And if the table is a little bit slanted, well, there goes your camera. It's gonna bang onto the surface of the table or fall apart. Kind of a real issue for me. If I'm not using a tripod, by itself, the DJI 4P without a tripod is gonna tip over. Should you actually buy a tripod? Yes, definitely so. So you'll be adding an extra $30, $40 just to buy a tripod for the DJI 4P. You'll be forced to buy the vlogging combo, which actually comes with a tripod, a microphone, all that other accessories that it should come from. But otherwise, yes, that brings up the price a little bit. There's no other way to really fix this for DJI. And speaking of accessories, that brings me to my next point, where for all the accessories that the DJI Pocket 4P is intended for, you need a proprietary cable to go along with each of the device. So as mentioned in this video, where I talked about 3 of the main drawbacks of DJI 4P, if you were to use the frame tab, which is for remote shooting, for framing, tracking, that kind of stuff, also with the microphone along with your camera, well, guess what? You need 3 different cables to charge all 3 of the devices. One is the DJI 4P, which uses USB-C cable, which I think most of us have it already. For the microphone itself, you need a proprietary cable that attaches at the bottom. There's no USB-C option like other microphones. There is also the frame tab. So frame tab also uses a different cable to charge. It's super inconvenient. Imagine, again, if you're on the go, you have one plug that has, 3 different USB-C cables. Or let's say if you have one, your only choice to charge your devices would be charging them one by one. If you have an outlet with 4 different USB outlets, well, sure, you can plug in all 4 ports to charge your devices. Maybe 1 for battery bank, and then the 3 for the 3 devices, DJI 4P, frame tab, and also the microphone. So this is what I think is poorly designed, and DJI could definitely do better. Or someone from small rig, newer KNF can make a charger just to charge all three devices at once. Who is this camera actually for? I've spoken for a long time, and I think people who should be buying the DJI 4P is very clear. So DJI 4P is not intended for solo creators, at least not for the ones that are on the go. They are intended for production purposes. If you want the highest image quality, if you want, a pocket-sized cinema rig, that would be the right device for you. If you're traveling, if you are in a hurry, if you need to switch lenses quickly, shooting events, I think very likely this is not going to be a very user-friendly device for you. Again, if you have all the time to fiddle with settings, the DJI 4P would be not a problem at all. So if you're shooting with a fixed setup, tripod mount, controlled environment, most of these issues barely matter at all. So the image quality actually outweighs its drawbacks. If you're moving fast, shooting events, traveling light, and need to react in the moment, the D-Lock 2 locks the lens into a standard lens, and the balance issue is going to slow you down even more than you can think of. If you want to see how this stacks up against other pocket cameras in the price range, I've linked that comparison here. Over the past 2 months, I've been using two cameras distinctively. I've been using any mirrorless cameras anymore. I've been using the Luna Ultra. What I've found is it fits my workflow a lot more than the DJI 4P. For my own workflow, traveling, shooting on the move, needing to react fast, I've moved over to the Luna Ultra. I'm not going to make a full case of the comparison against the 4P against the Luna Ultra on this video, but essentially when it's uploaded, that video will be linked up here. Now, that comparison will be on image quality, workflow, best audio setups, against two different sets of microphones, workflow and all that kind of things. And that comparison will be linked right here once it's live. So do subscribe to my channel if you want to see more reviews like this. So my final thoughts, again, the DJI Pocket 4P is not a bad camera at all. It just depends on what kind of filmmaker you are or what type of consumer you are. Let me know in the comments. If you have the DJI Pocket 4P, did the D-Lock 2 demotivate you from actually filming, making content? Subscribe to my channel and make sure you don't miss out on this videos. I'll see you guys again in the next video. Bye.